Peace and welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, we got a lot to talk about. First and foremost, let's talk about former President Donald Trump has officially won the state of Iowa in their caucuses over yesterday. And now this is setting him up to be the nominee for the Republican presidential campaign. We'll talk a little bit about that. Also, let's continue to have the conversation as I talk to one attorney about the implications of that case around Brittany Watts, the woman who was initially charged with killing her baby as their miscarriage, but then she was not charged. We're going to talk about the implications of that, and we're going to be checking in with Dr. Bridget for this week's Reclaim Your Wellness, as she gives us a little insight as to things that men can do around issues such as emotional unavailability, depression, and how it all plays on your health and wellness. Stay with us. Those conversations are up next, right here on The Culture, here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. All right, folks, welcome to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. And folks, I really do hope that you had a fantastic weekend. And I truly, truly appreciate y'all for tuning in with me today. And of course, we have the extra long weekend as we spend some time celebrating and honoring the great legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And, I had a chance to go out yesterday to just to do some work and to show my appreciation for what Dr. King has done as I got involved in the LA Works MLK Volunteer Day Festival that happened here in Los Angeles at the LA Memorial Coliseum. So that was a lot of fun. Was able to connect with my folks from around the community, bring my children out. They had a lot of fun. So it was a lot of fun to have that conversation, and more importantly, to talk about the significance of the great work of Dr. King. So I hope y'all had an opportunity to do something to reflect on Dr. King, but also to renew your commitment to the great work that he has already started. Let me just talk about the fact that we are streaming on a number of dope platforms. And folks, y'all can definitely check us out on our home platform of blackstarnetwork.com. Download the app for free. Follow us on social media at Black Star Network. And of course, we would love to connect with y'all. And we ask for your financial support because every penny, nickel, dime, dollar matters with us as we are continuing to strive to be independent and, more importantly, to carve our own path in this digital movement. So again, we thank you for your support, and check us out at blackstarnetwork.com. We are streaming also on Amazon platforms, so make sure you check us out on the Amazon News on Fire TV. We're also on Amazon Prime Video, so make sure y'all check us out there on the Prime Video app under Live TV, The News. So you can find us on Amazon.com under Prime Video, then Live TV, The News. And also we're on Freevee Network 24 hours, 7 days a week. So make sure you check us out under News. And we're also on Plex TV 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Just search for Black Star Network or find us under Live TV, The News, and Opinion. Big shout out to y'all, the online culture crew, folks that checking in from around the country. Can't thank y'all enough for doing that great work of being a part of the crew. So thank y'all so much. I see so many of you are checking in into the conversation. Let me just turn off this iPad. This thing talking. But I appreciate all of y'all for definitely checking in. If you're on X platform, Facebook platform, or if you're right there on Roland Martin's YouTube page, that's where a lot of our folks check in. You can join us in the conversation just as much as we have these discussions about what's happening. And I would love to hear what you have to say. All right, folks, let me just jump right into it, because yesterday we got word that former President Donald Trump, who many people are like, oh man, he probably won't pull it out. Well, the first major Republican caucus happened yesterday in the state of Iowa. And among in the midst of a snowy blizzard-like conditions there in the state of Iowa. Folks still came out. There was only a few folks. You got to remember, folks, it's Iowa, smaller state, smaller number of delegates. Folks still came out and caucused. And essentially, Donald Trump came out as the winner of this whole situation. He came up with a little bit of more than 50%, about some folks say 51, others say 52% of the votes that they got, the delegates made to propel him. And it was already speculated, it was already kind of figured out that he was going to grab a large number of the votes. But that was the situation. The Iowa caucus is in some cases, and people say it now, still, that it kind of serves as the kickoff for this whole situation of the presidential campaign for the Republican side. Of course, again, for the Democrat side, the elections will start next month in the state of South Carolina. But yeah, so former President Donald Trump has emerged as the winner of this particular caucus. Then trailing in a distant second is the the current governor for the state of Florida, Ron DeSantis. He came in with a little bit under about less than 25% in terms of that. And of course, we had Nikki Haley and also Mr. Vivek Ramaswamy. He has decided to suspend his campaign after a poor showing of just barely touching 10%, roughly about 10% of the votes in Iowa. He has decided to suspend his presidential campaign, which is not surprising. And he has decided to move forward on endorsing Donald Trump as the next president. So this is very interesting. I would love to get your feedback and take on it. Look, make sure y'all hit us up in the chat. I'd love to get your take on this, how this thing is really rounding itself out, how this thing is emerging as Trump is looking like he's won the first major contest, and they're expecting this is to be a domino effect. However, Nikki Haley is still putting in some work in, even though for like the state of New Hampshire and some other places, she is still trying to beat the pavement, still trying to hold on to some semblance of maybe she can get some momentum behind her campaign. But we will have to see. We will have to see. Look, I got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's continue to talk about it. Let me get your thoughts on this. So stay with us. We still got a whole lot to cover in this first half of the culture right here on the Black Star Network. Stay tuned.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause
too long have others spoken for us.
We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad, and we're just talking a little bit about what happened yesterday in the snowy state of Iowa. As the caucuses happened, and the big news that came from that was the fact that former President Donald Trump has emerged as the winner of the caucuses. Folks, I'm part of me, all I can say is, folks, it's like, welcome to America, folks. Welcome to America. That at this point in life, we are looking at a situation where the former president, with 4 indictments, with 91 charges, with records of him taking money from a foreign government, all that stuff, folks. And guess what? Guess what? He is still seen as a viable candidate for the presidency of the United States of America. This is where we are in this country. And I know that some people might say, well, this is a very different time. And, some people go as far as to use the language that he used. Oh, it's a witch hunt for Farajii, and you don't really, but yeah. A man with this much baggage going into the most powerful seats in the country and probably one of the most powerful seats in the world, and he's bringing this type of baggage. This is the place that we're in. Adrian Sargent, checking in. Thank you for checking in. Adrian, you said, so sad, so sad. This is the place that we find ourselves in, folks. We find ourselves in this space right now, trying to figure out how we're going to move forward. And let this be, look, I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I don't think that the momentum for Trump is going to slow down. Because this Iowa thing plays such a huge role in this whole thing, I think that at this point, we're going to see a succession of wins for the former president. Now, we can't stop that. The question really becomes, how are folks going to handle it as we move further along in this presidential campaign season? How is Black America going to respond? How is white America going to truly respond, right? How is this administration, the Biden-Harris administration, going to handle this? And then, of course, I mean, if they are up to it, because it's crazy, I can't imagine them. This is crazy. I feel like we're in uncharted territory here. We are literally, as a country, we're in uncharted territory simply because we've never had a former president with so much baggage, looking to run again, having so many different issues, and then more importantly, from Project 2025 and all of this talk of what another Trump administration, another Trump White House, another Trump presidency would look like. What are we going to do? Jezebel said, surprise, 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 surprise. Bag Lady 68, cannot afford another 4 years of backing the sleeping blue. Lana, my sister, you checked in. You said, Lana, in response to Tiana, and we are delusional to think that's going to change after 400 years. And Tiana, let me see. As you said, Tiana, white folks, white folking as usual. Mm. And it shouldn't get to that place. It really should be something different. It really should be something different. Cindy D, you said of over 2 million registered to vote in Iowa, only 100,000 voted. Yeah, I saw that story. They expected 200,000. I don't think it was the weather. Nobody's excited about these people. Yeah, I mean, that's what's going to happen. Pastor Damon, thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Lana. Damon, you said Farajii was stated that this was the lowest turnout on record because of the weather for the Iowa caucus. If I heard correctly, I did hear that as well, Brother Damon. That going back to what Cindy pointed out, that they were expecting a lot more and they got less. Half of the base actually showed up. Some people say that this is a sign that something is going to be happening, that Trump's influence is dwindling. I don't know. But the fact remains, he still won this caucus. Now, if he goes into, maybe Iowa is one of those situations and is an outlier for this presidential season, right? Normally, Iowa sets the tone. Many people look to Iowa and say, "Oh, okay, this is going to set the tone." But maybe it's an outlier. Maybe he gets to the next contest and it doesn't go so well for the former president. Maybe. Jezebel, you said, surprise, 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 sounded better in your head. Well, I appreciate you for joining us in the conversation. Let me see what else was talking, because this is it. We can't run from this. We can't be shocked. We can't get in a diluted space. Here's one of my inner New Year's resolution: to work from a space of reality, not working from a space of fantasy. That's one of my resolutions, to see things as they are. And I think we all have to get into a space where we have to be conscious and making sure that we see things as they are, not what we wish for them to be, not what we hope for them to be, not what they could possibly be, to see things as they are. And I'm using this lens for everything. Like, I got to see things as they are. You got to see things. Does the action meet or match the verbiage, the words? See things as they are. I can't keep going through a year of life, another year of being in existence on this great earth, and we continue to work from a space of hope, the possibility, if it could, it should, all of them. No, see things as they are. And I think that's where we are in political space. See the things as they are, the truth. Let's get to the root of the situation, the truth. And we have a very serious problem on our hands, folks. Cindy, you said 2024 is the year of exposure and truth. Oh, amen. I hope so. Sometimes the things that you run from are the things that you need the most. Woo! Come on, can the church say amen? Sometimes the things you run from, the things that you don't wish for, the things that you need the most. And truth is one of those things. So this is going to be very, very interesting, to say the least, that we're in a space where people have to see things as they are. Now, we got to take another quick pause. I'm going to shift gears a little bit. So we check in with one attorney about this the impact of this case. But trust and believe, we're not finished talking about what happened in Iowa. And we're not finished talking about what could potentially happen over these next elections as we are kicking off the election season. So let's continue to have those conversations, but let's try our best to see things that I'm not working from a space of wishing, couldn't, no. Now, at this point, I'm just saying, okay, so some folks really don't care. Some folks don't care. Some people are in a state of delusion, right? Some people are seeing things like, you must want to see the country get more and more divided, more and more polarized. And you must truly believe that you think that this guy, former President Donald Trump, cares about you. When in fact, when you see his pattern of behavior, I don't think that's the case. So we got to see things as they are, right? That's the only way we're going to get out of this space. All right, look, I got to take a quick pause. When we come back, let's switch gears. Let's check in with attorney Amber Webb Sims to talk to us about the case of Brittany Watts and more importantly, the implication of that case. Let's stay with me. It's the culture, here on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. All right, let me introduce to you my first guest for the show today. She serves as an attorney, and she's also doing some great work and using her platform with the Brokerage Podcast to talk about some of these big stories. So we are very, very happy and excited to be chatting it up with Miss Amber Webb Sims, who's going to give us some input, some insight as to what we need to see and what we need to keep in mind as we see cases like that of Brittany Watts happen. And even though Miss Watts was not charged, it still leaves a lot of questions on the table. So Amber, thank you so much for joining us today here on The Culture. How are you this afternoon?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. First, Amber, let's talk a little bit about This particular case, Brittany Watts, and we talked about it here on the show when it happened. But this case of Brittany Watts, where this woman was essentially arrested. This is in the state of Ohio. She suffered a miscarriage, left the non-viable viable fetus at home, and it was announced just a few days ago that she will not be criminally charged. This was decided on Thursday of last week. And so this dismissed the case that speaks to both women reproductive rights, as well as it speaks to the draconian laws that still exist on the books for the state of Ohio. And I wouldn't be surprised if other states are in the same position. And of course, it opens up the conversation about the pregnancy, whether it's an actual baby or if it's not a baby, that whole discussion. This was a felony charge that was filed by the Warren Police Department upon advice from the Warren City Prosecutor's Office. So talk to us a little bit about this implication. I know people have heard this story a little bit, but is this something that will this particular case set a precedent, and what's expected for women to happen to women as we look at this case and possibly other cases like it?
So it's interesting that you're pivoting to this after you were talking about the Iowa caucus, because it's really important for people to see the straight line between all of those things.
Yeah.
You have people who are morally bankrupt, people who are unqualified for office, who are able to gain political power without any oversight or accountability. And this is a really glaring example of that, because you have, quite frankly, a bunch of men who clearly misunderstand how pregnancy works for people who give birth in the position of law enforcement and in the position of prosecuting. And it's very dangerous when people who have those positions decide to politicize them instead of following the law. So Ohio voters resoundingly rejected a change in their abortion law back at the end of last year. And they rejected this concept of abortion at 6 weeks, because scientifically we know most people who are pregnant at 6 weeks don't even know they're pregnant. And so you had a case here where they were trying to use abuse of corpse laws really to make a political statement about a health issue. This was a woman who was clearly in active medical distress, who had been to the hospital multiple times in the days before this, and who at some point miscarried while she was on the toilet, and the remains were disposed of through the toilet. And instead of treating this like the medical crisis that it was politicized, and she was charged with a third-degree felony. And fortunately, the grand jury process worked in this case. The grand jury no-billed this case, and Ms. Watts was not charged with a crime.
I got to take another quick pause, but Amber, I got a lot of questions, because even though the charges were dropped, the fact that these were charges that was not brought up by any individual, this is a charge that was brought up by the city of Warren in the state of Ohio. Like, this is a charge that it opens up the door for the conversations that will women be penalized for things that they have no control of within their bodies.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. And it is, again, to the issue that you were talking about the dangerousness of the political climate we're in, because not only do you have people who are in the position of making these decisions who are uninformed, but they have no desire to be informed. It was essentially conceded to by the law enforcement agency that the investigation was wholly inadequate for the situation. If you talk to anybody who's given birth, they will tell you oftentimes the first signs of active labor is a sensation very similar to what one feels when you have to go to the bathroom. And so it is just very interesting to me that we are seeing consistently across the country, largely men, first of all, and largely people who are politicizing things that are medical, making these decisions. And like you said, what we've seen, I'm here in Texas, this is something that is consistently jeopardizing the health of women. And so you have women who are in need of medical procedures to save their lives because fetuses are not viable, and the continuation of the pregnancy is threatening their health. Where you have doctors who are afraid to perform those procedures because in certain places like Texas, they could be imprisoned. And so this is a big issue that is bigger than what we see here in Ohio that can affect women all over this country as the laws continue to radicalize.
That is something else. And I've got to take this pause, but Amber, when we're talking about what we saw in Iowa with once again the vote for Donald Trump, we know where he stands on some of these issues. What are some of what can we expect coming from, folks that are thinking like him, folks that are maybe, on the peripherals? Like this is very, very interesting. And I think it's very timely that Black women in particular have some sort of plan of action, whether it's legally or otherwise, to address this issue. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, more conversation with Miss Amber Webb Sims, who is an attorney, as we talk about the implication of the Brittany Watts case and more. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in Black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. We have been talking to attorney Amber Webb Sims as she kind of gives us some of the legal and the legal discussion and more the legal perspective of this case around Brittany Watts. This is the Black woman from Ohio who was initially charged, criminally charged for the way that her baby was disposed. There she is right there. Well, it was determined last Thursday that she will not be charged, criminally charged, according to a grand jury, dismissing the case that highlights the extent to which women can be prosecuted when their pregnancy ends, whether by abortion or miscarriage. This doesn't sit well with me, Amber. This does not sit well with me at all. I feel like there's going to be a flood, like the gates have been opened if states across this country can file charges against women. And I know that this is going to disproportionately affect Black women. It's going to disproportionately affect women from the Latino community, those of us who are kind of like on the bottom rung of things. And it's going to open the door for a much larger conversation about women's rights, who has agency over the woman's body, and it's going to infringe upon a woman's choice to abort the child or to abort the fetus. And the way this country is, I mean, look, if folks in Iowa can vote for Donald Trump, I said in the beginning, I'm seeing things as they are.
Yeah.
I'm not going to put it past anybody to try to commit this type of assault on women. I'm not going to put it past anybody. How can a Black woman, how can Black women in particular handle this, go through this process? You know what I'm saying? What recourse, what action can Black women take?
Well, that's a really good question. And one of the things I want to clarify here is that we are not talking about a case where a woman was electing the right to an abortion. We are talking about the case where a woman needed health care because she was in the process of delivering a non-viable fetus. And so one of the things that happens as this sort of violent pro-life politic has been weaponized in the Republican Party as a way to drum up support for people like Trump who have no substantive issues that they're standing on, is that you actually have women like Brittany Watts who were not attempting to elect a right to have an abortion, but rather this was a woman in medical crisis because she was carrying a child that was not viable because there was no amniotic fluid in her sac. And to the point that you're making, what is going to continue to happen is that you are going to have both women who should have the right and birthing people who should have the right to elect to have an abortion if they so choose, being persecuted. But you're also going to have people who want their babies, but people who are in medical crisis, whose lives are in danger because for whatever reason, their pregnancy is not viable. And they are in situations where they need medical care that includes aborting the child to save their life. And you are going to have those same people being put in positions where their health is imperiled because medical practitioners are either hesitant to act or because those women are afraid to seek the care that they need out of fear that what happened to Miss Watts will happen to them. And so
I'm sorry, go ahead, Amber. I'm sorry.
No, I was about to say this assault is bigger than just abortion. As you can see, it's affecting people who are not even trying to elect the right to have an abortion.
So are there any particular laws that women can reference, rely on, lean on to say, well, I have a right to I have a right to the age to make a decision about the agency of my own body? Like, what kind of, from a legal perspective, what can Black women and other women lean on?
Well, unfortunately, we are in a bad position because now that Roe versus Wade has been overturned, there is no federal law guaranteeing the right to an abortion as healthcare here in the United States. So quite frankly, the health and the ability of women to flourish in this country, Black women and Black people who birth children in this country to flourish, depends on where you live, what state you live in. And quite frankly, outside of the states on the coast, your California, your Washingtons, most of us in the middle and in the South are in places where the law is very draconian. Where, for example, here in Texas, where I am, after 6 weeks, do not have the right to an abortion. there are penalties in place for medical providers who provide abortions outside of an emergency. And I will say that our state Supreme Court has just recently refused to clarify what an emergency is. Those doctors can face felony penalties. And so, unfortunately, it depends on what state you live in, the level of protection you have. And that is problematic in the country that holds itself out as the most progressive, industrialized, wealthy nation in the world. That is a shame.
All right. One of my great culture crew members pointed out something, and Real Brooklyn, you posted it, so you know what the consequences could potentially be. That I'm gonna pull it, that I'm gonna bring it up into the conversation, because I think it speaks about something. Real Brooklyn, my guy, welcome to the chat, bro. You said, I think this woman was charged because she did not report her pregnancy. She knows better. She is not living in a third world country. She should have said something. Not even her family knew, damn it.
That ain't none of it's nobody's business. Like, quite frankly, this idea that women owe the world their pregnancy, their fertility, that they have to make announcements, that people have to know, is peak misogyny and peak patriarchy. But also, that's factually incorrect, because in the days before the fetus perished, she had been to the doctor 3 times, reporting bleeding, reporting cramping and discomfort, reporting complications with the pregnancy. So it was not like she did not seek medical care. She was in the middle of a medical event that created non-viability, and that was just simply beyond her control. And so I think that it's important for us to keep our eyes on the main thing. This is not about whether she chose to tell anybody. This is about the fact that your healthcare option should not be determined based upon where in the United States you live.
And even as a woman who had gone to the doctors and everything, there's no law that can protect her medically either.
Correct. And also this is part of the problem when you have incompetent white men writing the laws. What does it even mean? Because the 3rd-degree felony she was charged with was not reasonably disposing of remains. Do you know how many women in this country have accidentally given birth on the toilet? Do you know how many women in this country and how many birthing people in this country have been under the mistaken impression that they had urges to go to the bathroom when they were in active labor? So many. And so the law here doesn't even clarify what it means to reasonably handle the corpse. This lady did not have any obligation to do anything with the fetus once it came out and it was not viable and it was dead. And for them to charge her when the law is so poorly written just reaffirms that this is a political witch hunt that has nothing to do with public health or the concern for a person whose life is in danger when they're having a baby.
So as we close this out, Amber, what can we expect over the next couple of months? I mean, this got some buzz on social media. Of course, we talked about it here on Black Star Network. But in terms of, I mean, it just sounds like the body and the choices of women is just up for grabs. Like that there's nothing to support women's choices. There's no law to support women, how women use their body, which is absolutely insane that I'm actually saying that. But I feel like that is the case in this place, because we don't, of course, as men, we don't do that. We don't have to go through that. We don't have to figure out, like, just as a man, I have to, quote unquote, report something going on in my body. Or as a man, then it's my body becomes the talk for political and legislative conversations. So what do you foresee happening? And what's the next step from this point?
Unfortunately, because this is an election year, I think we should expect to see more places like Ohio and more municipalities like this one trying to score political points by overcharging women and birthing people who are in crises with various violations of anti-abortion statutes. But what I think we need to do as a result of that is we need to make it very clear that having federalized protection of the right to abortion as healthcare needs to be a primary component of the Democratic platform in this election, because no woman, no birthing person is going to be safe in this country until the right to abortion is federalized. And so I think that as the election year progresses and people are trying to score pro-life points and politicize this healthcare issue, you are going to see frivolous charges like this brought that create true jeopardy for people, because litigation is expensive, having to hire lawyers, missing work. And think about it. People who are already carrying children, that's already a concern. I am an attorney, and I went into labor in court with both of my kids because I was afraid to go out of work because I couldn't afford to stop. And so think about that. You're already targeting people who are already vulnerable. And so, yes, I think as the election year goes on, we're going to unfortunately see more of this. But what we all need to be advocating for is a federalized right to abortion that is available in every state in the United States.
Amber, we got to bring you back and talk a little bit more about this, because I don't see major changes, at least not happening in 2024. You know what I'm saying? Like you said, and so it's like every woman for herself at this point. Absolutely. And that's a scary place to be in America.
Yeah.
That is absolutely scary. And considering the number of sexual abuse, the number of rapes and other sexual violations, every woman is for herself in America.
Yes.
Damn.
Yes.
Dang. Amber, I appreciate you, sis. Thank you so much for joining us. Certainly we'll bring you back on, but thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. We certainly needed to hear more about this.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's check in now. I know it's Tuesday. We weren't on yesterday. So today we will have an opportunity to hear from our medical expert, Dr. Bridget Cole-Williams, for this week's Reclaim Your Wellness. Stay with us. She's going to be up next. Got a whole conversation for the other side. So stay with us. It's The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. A phenomenal first hour as we talked a little bit about the big victory for former President Donald Trump in Iowa yesterday, as well as talking about the legal implications of that case of the Brittany Watts, the Ohio woman, who was criminally charged for having a miscarriage, only to be not charged. It was determined last week that she would not be criminally charged. So, having a conversation about the legal rights of women and what does that look like moving forward, especially when the folks on the other side of the aisle are dictating the agenda in a lot of states where our people reside. So dynamic first hour, make sure y'all check it out, be a part of Team Replay. Go to our website today at blackstarnetwork.com and download the app for free. Follow us on social media, but also we ask for your financial donations and just be a part of the conversation in general as we have these discussions. I want to say very quickly before we move forward, big shout out to all of the new watchers that have joined us on the X platform, on the Facebook platform, the Culture Crew on the Facebook platform, and on Roland Martin's YouTube page. Folks are just checking in and being a part of the conversation, and I cannot thank you enough for doing so. And again, we thank you for all of your financial support. Now, let's switch gears as we talk about health and wellness. And today is Tuesday. Got my sister back in the space with me today. Always happy to have Dr. Bridget joining us, our medical expert, as we get you another edition of Reclaim Your Wellness. Dr. Bridget.
You know what, Farajii? This messes me up for the whole week. When I do the Tuesday show, you cannot tell me today is not Monday. Like, I am confused for the entire week after.
Can I just share a little something too? So am I.
Right? I know when I'm going to talk to. Like, we got a schedule.
We do have a schedule, y'all. And I actually talked to Dr. Richard offline, and I'm like, Doc, you want to do? Now, I don't force her. She's like, no, let's go, let's do it, because she does not want to miss an opportunity to talk to us every week. So I honor that, and I just say, hey, get ready to make your Tuesday Monday.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
So, Doc. First and foremost, how are you?
Good. It's we've been doing a little traveling this week with some of my entrepreneurial activities and really connecting with people in Dallas this weekend. And so that was an incredible experience, and finally made it back home with all the winds and turbulence, and happy to be here with you today.
That is awesome. Now, you've been having some very, very notable conversations on your after chats and in other places. And folks, again, if you haven't had a chance, make sure y'all follow Dr. Bridget on all social media platforms. And she gives you just a sneak peek of some of the things and some of the conversations that she's involved in across the country, relating from everything from family care to women's rights to cannabis. I mean, she covers the gambit on a lot of these topics and issues. So she's dynamic in bringing her analysis and her expertise. So make sure y'all do that. One of the folks that you had a conversation about men, and we often talk about women because I certainly want to make sure that the space is open for those conversations. Mm-hmm. But I am also open to having some real dialogue about men. What's some of the big discussions you've been having about men lately?
Absolutely. So I do my show called Healthy Relationships Only on Instagram Live at Dr. Bridget MD, and we do that pretty much every week. And we're moving to YouTube probably in the next couple of weeks here. But I want to talk about what does a healthy relationship look like, right? And most of the time, we really don't know, because what we have, where we learn it and what we understand probably has a certain aspect of dysfunction in the first place. And so I take these opportunities, whether it's about yourself and your relationship with yourself and your self-esteem and confidence, or whether it's intimate relationships with your parents, with your kids, with your coworkers, with your friends. You know, we all want to have more peace in life. And by gaining more healthier relationships, that's one way to gain it. And so I met this incredible person on OWL. If you've not heard of it, it's a great place to meet experts in different fields. And I met Will Baptiste there, where he focuses on Black men in coaching in Canada. I was highly intrigued by this. We had a great conversation. So we did a show about toxicity, toxic masculinity, and Black male vulnerability. And it was an incredible conversation. So wanted to bring...
Let's bring your guest in, because I'm ready to jump in. Toxic masculinity. Please, let's go, Doc. Let's make it happen. We got my brother, Will Baptiste. And Will, good afternoon. Welcome to the culture, Will. How are you, dear brother?
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I like to say how I'm feeling, because how I'm doing make me feel like I'm a human doing. But last time I checked, I was a human being. So I like to say that I'm feeling good, because being is doing. And when I'm being, I'm getting more done. So
come on. Hey, brother, first thing, brother, you ain't have to drop jewels in the first 30 seconds of your intro. I mean, already you giving us an insight as to what's going to happen. All right, Doc. So talk to us first, Doc, about this toxic masculinity. What was the inspiration behind this conversation between you and Will?
So when we first started talking, Will, and definitely interject here, we simply were just talking about, you know, relationships and, you know, what looks good and what doesn't look good and what do people complain about. And the word that often will come up are these toxic people. You know, we talk about toxicity, we talk about narcissism. What does it actually mean? And how can we get a relationship healthy if we're starting with the mindset that the person that we're interacting with is actually toxic? And what does that mean? And so in the course of it, we started digging into this concept of what it means to when men are taught or boys are taught to suppress emotion. And when you're taught to suppress emotion, and this is really key for our listeners that have children that have boys, because we, from an early age, what do we tell them? To suck it up, don't cry, you know, don't share those emotions. But all of that pushing down emotions ends up to what looks to be like toxicity, more violence, anger, aggression, and sometimes leads into this hyper masculinity where it's over exaggerated masculinity, which it's not a healthy place to be. And to know that Will does work in this area to help men learn to connect with their emotions was really exciting. And his comment to me was that it's not toxicity. So if you want to comment on that, Will.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And as I mentioned before, toxic masculinity, it is a word that was really invented in the 1980s and late 1980s and the early 1990s, because they're trying to understand why so many men are going to prison. So psychologists and other physicians, they get together and they really come up with that word. But somehow mainstream media got a hold of that word. And then all of a sudden, when a man doesn't bow down to what society expects us to do, and especially with unfortunately, the feminist movement. So now when we are not, buying into the narrative of how men are supposed to be, how men are supposed to behave, so on and so forth, and all of a sudden we we're being put on a label as toxic masculinity. Toxicity, it could be male or female. It doesn't have any gender. But if I'm trying to have a conversation, or if I'm trying not to have a conversation with you, well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to label you, because I don't want to, because as soon as I label you, now already I put you in the corner. So I don't need to have a conversation with you because I've already labeled you. So when I'm labeling you, I've already put you in a box. Now you become another person with no voice. So now I can continue with the narrative of, well, this is toxic masculinity because he does not meet my requirement. He does not meet my expectation. So therefore, I'm going to call that toxic masculinity because I can't get what I want from it. So whether it's toxic masculinity or femininity, it does not exist. We have toxic people, we have toxic environment, and we have toxic even culture. But to say that masculinity or a man that's walking in his masculine in energy is toxic is preposterous.
Yeah.
And I think we don't have to argue. We don't have to we don't have to be mad at each other. We just need to understand, why are you labeling me? That's number one. Number two, why am I even allow you to label me? Why am I allowing you to put an identity on me when I know who I am, where I stand, my morals and values, my needs and wants, my negotiables and non-negotiables? So it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, we want to label each other because we do not want to have a real conversation, because we're all about surface conversation instead of deep, meaningful conversation. And until we can come to that understanding, we're always going to label each other this, that, and the third.
Hey, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, I can see this conversation. I'm listening intently to you, Will, and to you, Dr. Bridget. So I know this conversation is going to get deep. Folks, I want you to join us as we have this discussion, checking in with our very special guest, Mr. Will Baptiste, and Dr. Bridget, of course, for this week's Reclaim Your Wellness segment. And I would love to hear what you have to say about this, crew, talking about toxic masculinity, how men struggle with sharing what's going on in their minds, their hearts, their spirits, and more importantly, how it impacts just our intimate relationships, our friendships, our family relationships, and essentially our community and people. Folks, join me in the conversation. We're streaming live on Roland Martin's YouTube page and Roland Martin's Facebook page. And stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to the culture here on the Black Star Network. Checking in with Dr. Bridget Cole Williams, our medical expert here on the culture for this week's Reclaim Your Wellness. It is Tuesday, folks, not Monday. But Dr. Bridget is still with us today. And she brought along a very special guest, Mr. Will Baptiste, who is a life coach. He's an author. He's a speaker. And Dr. Bridget, you and Will have got something started talking about toxic masculinity and the impact that it has on intimate relationships and, of course, family and communal relationships. And that this opens the door because I think a lot of brothers right now are struggling to try to articulate, struggling to share emotionally. I think a lot of men are, I read a piece, Dr. Bridget and Will, when we were doing our Black Men Summit just a couple of months ago, I read this piece saying that one of the biggest factors, medical, or they said health and wellness factors facing men is loneliness, right? Another one is emotional blockage. And so, we're as men, we are not opening ourselves up to have fulfilling relationships. Even the women or the partners that are in our lives, we're still kind of back away from that. And I've been reading a lot about the narrative, and speaking to what you were saying, Will, a lot about the narrative, the idea of what it means to be a man, and should a man open up. Doc, I want to get your take first, and then we're going to go to your guest, Will. What do you make of that? Like, do you see men, or do you have these conversations with men, whether Black men or white men or Latino men or whoever? But are you having conversations with men to help them to kind of break down those walls and to discover their inner selves?
Well, this is the problem, that the behavior of not sharing emotionally, not being willing to be vulnerable is taught, right? No one comes into the world saying, I'm not going to be vulnerable. So boys are taught, and to be honest, more and more we're teaching girls this as well, right? So that they're ready for the world and what might come with it. But particularly we treat or teaching boys to not express emotion, to not cry, to not allow themselves to be vulnerable because they need to protect themselves from the world. The problem is when you squash all that emotion, when you're pushing it down, energy does not die, it transforms. So when you're pushing all of that energy and that emotion down, it is going to come out somehow. And unfortunately, what we are labeling as toxicity, and I agree with you, Will, that it doesn't matter if it's male or female, people generate toxicity when they're not allowed to have a safe place. The problem is with a lot of Black men in our culture and in our lives, they do not have a safe place. That if you are in an intimate relationship, it is part of your partner. That woman is supposed to provide a safe emotional place for you. Many don't do that as women. We don't give that place. Right. And then where do they cry? Because that's what men do cry. Where do they express? Absolutely. And then when they do express, it comes out in ways that are not useful or functional in any way.
Well. Why does our favorite doctor open up that can, brother? Why did she go there?
Well,
go ahead, brother. Go ahead. Talk to me.
She went there because she had to. She had no choice, but she's got me here. Let me go back and say, based on studies and research, it has shown that when a boy by the time a boy gets to be between 7 and 9 years old, that his emotion has already been stifling. So which means by the time after 9 years old, he has no idea what emotions are. So imagine by the time you're 9 years old, now you're about 30, 40, 60, 50 years old, and somebody's not telling you about emotions. You'd be like, I left this behind a long time ago. What are you talking about emotions? I don't even know I have emotions. So let alone you want me to express my emotions. And I made a bold statement. And I say, by the time that I leave this earth, I want to be the one of the leading expert when it comes to emotional intelligence. And I know this might be a buzzword for that we've been talking about, but I don't think people really understand what emotional intelligence is. And allow me a minute to explain what emotional intelligence is, because as a father, I would much rather my children acquire emotional intelligence than IQ. And I'm going to tell you why. Because when you have emotional intelligence, we have a lot of people with IQ, but I have no emotional intelligence. And there are 4 steps into acquiring emotional intelligence. First of all, you have to identify that you have emotions, right? Second, you have to be able to acknowledge, not just identifying it, but you have to acknowledge that it does exist. Third, you have to be able to verbalize it. What am I feeling right now? Fourth, you have to be able to manage it or control it. Because we're saying that we don't have emotion. That's a bunch of BS. We do have emotions, but we're just not expressing it in a way that is constructive. That's the reason why we ended up being in prison. That's the reason why we have the violence and now suicide. And fifth, we have to be able to master it, because once we master it, then we can teach the next generation how to first to identify the emotions, to acknowledge the emotions, to verbalize it, and then to manage it. Once we know that, then we can help the next generation not to keep making the same mistake that we've been making for the last 40, 50 years.
Yeah.
Hey, Will, I want to throw this out there. It takes a emotional, and I've heard the 2 terms. I've heard emotional intelligence, your EQ, right? So we know that's real. But then I also heard the term emotionally mature. Being emotionally mature, which is, to me, and I could be wrong, Doc and Will, is just something a little bit different, because the maturity comes when there is awareness, right? So if you're talking about being emotionally mature, you're talking about going through those 5 steps. You're probably at step 2 or 3, where you acknowledge that, look, I do have emotions. I am feeling a certain way. Now you may still be challenged by being able to articulate how you're feeling, but you're recognizing that you do have these emotions, that something is bothering you and it affects you a certain way. So I think that is so when we're talking about that level of emotional intelligence, bro, you're also talking about having there to be a foundation of emotional maturity where you can even start developing the intelligence. You may not know how to articulate, but you can at least say, look, hey, look, I don't know how to say it. You can be rocky in your explanation, right? Like very like, look, hey, look, I'm hurt. And you can use the simplest, most elementary term to describe, I'm feeling sad today. I'm happy today. You know what I'm saying? It's not the most quote unquote mature, but there is at least an acknowledgement. How did we get to that place of just recognizing that? Because we're all over the place. And especially when given, there are so many iterations, Brother Will, of what masculinity is based upon the person that's doing that the male figure or the lack of male figure, based upon the culture, the household, based upon what you see as being a man as a 9-year-old boy. I have a 10-year-old son. So hopefully he's looking at me and say, okay, this is what it means to be a man. But talk to me about that process.
Oh, absolutely. And I believe emotional intelligence is like the canopy, right? The umbrella.
Right.
And we have to understand that maturity, there are levels to this, right? Because if you can identify it, that's already a step towards maturity. So, well, first of all, let me give the disclaimer. Men are 15 years younger when it comes to the emotions versus their physical. So in other words, a man that is 40 years old, when it comes to his emotions, he's about 35 years old. Don't quote me on that. This is something where I read it, but I find it fascinating. Now, let's come back to the maturity. I think there are levels to this. If you can at least identify, if you can acknowledge, is some form of self-awareness. And self-awareness, there are levels to this. So I think when it comes to maturity, we have to give people the grace to help them to get to that maturity level. But at some point, just like a child, we'll give a child milk and baby food. When you get to about 30, 40 years old, we don't expect you to eat some steak. So if you're at 40, 50 years old, and you're still telling me that I'm still on that low level maturity when it comes to our emotions, we got a problem, brother, and we got to talk, because we got to start holding each other accountable. I mean,
I agree.
I'm gonna give you a power, but we gotta get down to business and we gotta level it up, man.
Oh, absolutely. The Stephanie Humphrey channel checked in. Stephanie Humphrey, you said the emotional maturity is being aware of your emotions, being able to express them all, most of the time without nor minimal harm, and learning to navigate them all in a healthy way. Absolutely. Absolutely. Janelle, you said emotional intelligence, EI, the ability to recognize and manage your emotions as well as understand the emotions of others is not about an age of maturity. Yeah. Here's my question, Doc, and then we're gonna have to take a quick break because I'm saying it specifically asking you as a woman. How much time? How much time do you wait for a man to come to an awakening of his emotions? How much time? No, this is a real challenge and struggle. I'm literally just having this conversation earlier today. This is a very real challenge and struggle for a lot of women that are connected with men in an intimate and romantic way. How much time do you give?
Well, I think what it comes down to is that I think for the right person, you can work with them through a lifetime. But it takes someone who has self-awareness. It takes someone who, if you're trying to tell a rock that they're, that they can express emotion and that they're in a safe place and that this is some place where you're working with them and you want to be in this with them together, the rock is just going to be like, but you have someone who, we all have struggles. So that's what I'm saying. Like, this isn't about, oh, men have these, women got issues too.
Facts.
And so you have someone that's like, I want to grow, I want to progress, I want to change, and I want to do it with you. You have a lifetime together because you're both going to be growing together.
But that requires a growth mindset, as they say, right, Doc?
Absolutely. So I could give a lifetime to someone that wanted to grow, but I can't give you 10 minutes. You are not in a mindset.
See, Brother Will, that's why I had to ask her. Because
I love it.
Hey, look, bro. Like, let's keep it real. And this is, you can't have, unless you have to be in connection in a relationship with someone to get a proper measurement of your emotional intelligence and your emotional maturity. They are the metric, right? And hopefully that woman is in, like, to your point, Doc, hopefully the woman has a growth mindset, but the woman is the metric for the man, and the man is the metric for the woman in terms of figuring out if that person has the emotional maturity and intelligence. You can't say it for yourself. You can't be like, I have emotional intelligence, and your relationships don't reflect that.
Mm-hmm.
I completely agree, but I'm gonna go slightly different from that. I don't think I need to be in a relationship to know, because now I'm putting that responsibility on somebody else, and I don't think I want to do it. You understand? Now I'm putting that responsibility on somebody else. Listen, brother, I'm 43 years old. If I'm waiting for a woman to be the metric upon which I'm going to know who I am, then I have a problem, what we call identity crisis. However, I can do the work and present the work. Once the work is being done or in the process of doing, I can now allow myself to put it out there to see what kind of response that I get, and if I need to go back to the drawing board. But to say that I want her to be the mistress, I can't do that for the life of me. I can't. I've got to be responsible. Now, let's just put it out there. We are born to be leaders, right? And we all innately as men to be leaders. So this is too much for me to put on a woman or any other person to be responsible for my own emotional intelligence and whatnot. That's my take on that.
That is a major take. Look, we got to take another quick pause. When we come forward, more with Will Baptiste, Dr. Bridget, and of course with you. Post your comments as we're talking about breaking the stigma of men's mental health and emotions right now today here on the Reclaim Your Wellness segment with Dr. Bridget. Stay with us. More conversation on the other side right here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches. I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in Black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to PO Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Man, oh man, I got two dynamic people joining me in the conversation today as we're talking about breaking the stigma of men's mental health and emotions. And I'm joined by my sister, Dr. Bridget, for this week's Reclaim Your Wellness. She brought along, because she always brings the fire, she brought along a very special guest, Brother Will Baptiste, who's a life coach. He's an author. He's a speaker. As we talk about emotional intelligence, emotional maturity, and essentially reconnecting men back to their emotional selves to have a more fulfilling life in all of their relationships, whether it's the intimate to all the way to the community relationship. I got two burning questions, and I think I'm gonna pose them to both of you. But Will, I'm gonna start with you on this one because you're doing the work. Dr. Bridget introduced you as one who does the work of reconnecting men to their emotions. My question is, what are the consequences of men who refuse to open themselves up, who don't meet that timeline? By the time they get into their 30s and their 40s, they don't open up, and then they keep being this way for 50 and 60. What have your experience shown you to be the consequences of that emotional blockage?
Wow, the consequences are enormous, and they're a heavy price to pay for that. Number one, let's look at it from ourselves, right? And I have a term for that. I call it emotional constipation. If anybody
emotional, wait a minute, hold on. You said emotional constipation.
Yes, I did that for Dr. William, because she's a doctor. She understands when someone is constipated, what happens. So I call it emotional constipation. And for too long, we have been constipated. Now, here's the thing. It affects us at so many levels. I mean, I don't have to go far. And I think I alluded to that earlier. When we, first of all, we can't heal what we don't reveal.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when we don't speak up, everything that comes in must come out, right? That's just simple. That's just law of biology. That's just pure and simple. Now, let's take it a little bit broadly. What's happening when we do not learn how to express our emotions in a way that is constructive? Then we ended up being in prison. I have been there and incarcerated 5 times because I didn't know how to be grounded, but I wanted to be tough. I wanted to be hard. When somebody look at me in the wrong way and I've got a piece on me and I want to know why you look at me this way. I want to know why you step on my J's. Stupid, right? We ended up in prison. And when we come home, everything is going inside of us. We don't have a safe space, even in our home. Then what we ended up doing, we ended up taking it out on our own kids or on our woman. And worse, now we do it internally. Now we're turning the gun on us. We're jumping off building. We're doing all kinds of things, right? Because the pain is so severe. Now we no longer want to let the world to see it. So we're rather in on our own lives because we're trying to minimize, right, the pain. But this is not the way to do it. This is not the way to go about it. So it hurt us. It hurt our community. It hurt our family. And at the end of the day, nobody's winning. So I think it is in our best interest, not only for our community, not only for our family, but for the race of men. We are running out of men. This species of men, we are running out of it. And we need to find a way to preserve the man species because we need men more than ever before.
So if you don't have a safe space, Brother Will, to open up, what would you advise men to do? If they don't have a safe space within their relationships, within their homes, and I use this terminology in terms of men feeling powerless, right? Like if you do not have a safe space to open yourself up to your romantic partner, you don't have a safe space to where you say something in your own household or among your family, rather, it doesn't carry much significance. It doesn't carry much weight. And essentially, you will become emotionally powerless, which leads to a level of physical debilitation. How do you expect men to move forward from that?
Absolutely. That's a great question. Again, I come back to responsibility and accountability. And I think each man should be responsible, accountable for his own action and for what he does. And I think it starts with us. And I understand that some men feel powerless, right? And I know that the most powerful, the most dangerous men in the world is not the most powerful men. It's the men that feel powerless. So now, because we have to take a responsibility, accountability, the words out there, I'm here, Dr. Chair, there's so many other people. If we really need their help, and I know sometimes we can feel, debilitated, we can feel powerless, but I'm imploring men, if you don't do it for yourself, do it for your children. If you don't have children, do it for your partner. If you don't do it for your partner, do it for your family. Do it for your community. But whatever you got to do, we got to do it. And there are a lot of people out there, like myself, like others that are out there that are talking. You're on your cell phone. You're on social media. I'm sure you come across somebody that's talking about creating the space. And there's a saying that say that, if you're not being invited at the table, then be your own table. So start, among ourselves. And that's why I encourage men to stop having surface level conversation. It's all good to talk about sports. It's all good to talk about the girls and the jewelry, getting the bag. But what about talking about our emotion, which is the most important thing? Because at the end of the day, nobody's going to remember what you have, but people are going to remember how you make them feel. And how you make people feel is a direct reflection of how you feel on the inside.
Let me just tell you, this may not be a Doc and Brother Will, this may not be the most scientific or the approach that I take, I'm at a point in my life where I have been the emotionally unavailable guy in my past relationships, right? It has caused real damage and real harm. And so I'm at a point in my life is like, hey man, I don't care whether there's a space or not, you're gonna hear this truth. I'm not holding it back anymore. You know what I'm saying? Just because I know what that other side looks like. And being able to say, you know what? It doesn't, I'm not going to keep carrying this burden of keeping my stuff inside, not expressing myself, not letting my truth being heard. And I say it, of course, in a very, very respectful way, but it needs to get off my chest just simply because I don't want to go back to that toxic behavior, that toxic thinking within that I've experienced. And so, Dr. Bridget, I want to bring your attention to, I want to bring you in because I think a lot of that burden is why we go into relationships. I know in your podcast, when you're talking about healthy relationships, a lot of people tend to believe that their relationship is supposed to save them from themselves.
Right. We put way too much pressure, and Will was alluding to this too, that you can't expect someone else to save you, particularly from yourself. You have to do the hard work. And the fact of the matter is, whether you're in an intimate relationship or not, you're in relation with other people every single day. If you're realizing that there's an incredible amount of stress in interacting, people are not understanding you, you're walking away with a knot in your stomach due to frustration and not able to express how you feel in a constructive manner, that you feel like you have to be so stoic that no one can really see who you actually are, you must do the hard work. As a community, we have to destigmatize mental health and seeking it, particularly for Black men. As a culture, we have to look at and change how we define masculinity. As long as we only see masculinity as a stoic and hard and unable to express themselves, and that's a real man, then we'll be raising boys that will continue the cycle, and they will raise their children in the same way. So we have to leave an open space, but no one can do the work for you. It's wonderful to have a partner with you.
Yeah.
No one can do the work for you.
Look, we're going to take another pause. When we come forward, more conversation. Folks, I want to hear from you. I'm going to share some of your comments around this conversation about breaking the stigma around men's mental health and emotions, toxic masculinity, and so much more. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in Black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. Been having a dynamic conversation with our very own medical expert, Dr. Bridget Cole Williams, Dr. Bridget, for this week's Reclaim Your Wellness. And she brought a very special guest, a brother who is just breaking it down to the common compound. Isn't that what they used to say back in the day, Brother Will? They used to... My brother Will Baptiste, who is a life coach, author, and speaker, as we talk about emotional health, as we're talking about toxic masculinity, and so much more. Let me just share what some of the crew members are saying as we have in this conversation. Vincent Morales, you said something. And I think, Vincent, I applaud you for taking the step. You said, I once stayed alone for almost a year once because I felt I was broken. Now, Vincent recognized that he had some stuff going on with him. And Vincent, I appreciate you for being vulnerable, sharing your I think we should this should be a safe space, especially here on the show, to talk about these things, right? Because we're going to talk about it. And I find it to be interesting, Doc, that people are more apt to talk to strangers about these things versus quote unquote versus family members and the ones that really are affected by emotional constipation. So Vincent said he once stayed alone for almost a year once because he felt he was broken. Talk to us, Brother Will, about when you make that decision as a man to say, you know what? I'm going to fall back for a little bit of time. I'm going to take some time off from this dating, from this relating, and I'm going to work on myself. How important is that step?
That's very important. But to each his own. This may work for him. He may not work for somebody else, because we can heal together without hurting each other. So the thing is saying, well, I got to take some time off, because if you want to take some time off, that's fine. And I think it's very important that we do, because we have to love ourselves before we can ask somebody else to love us, right? So we have to be comfortable with ourselves. We have to find ourselves alone in our own thoughts and our own world, and be able to navigate, because that's what we call interdependence. Interdependence means that I can do for myself what I want you to do for me, but if you're not there, I can do it for myself. And that's the difference between codependence and independence. But we're not going to get into that. But and I applaud this young man to say that I recognize that is some level of emotional intelligence and maturity, to say I recognize that I am not in a position to be in any type of relationship with someone, because first of all, I may self-sabotage this relationship, and I may leave this person more broken than they already were. Why?
Woo!
As Dr. Bridget says, energy is very transferable. So if I'm negative, even if that person is positive, I may drain that person. Now, the question is, am I going to be a vacuum that I'm going to suck energy out of people, or am I going to be a battery, which I'm going to give energy to people? You understand what I'm saying?
Oh, snap. Wait a minute. Hold on, man. Hold on, man. Come on, brother. Come on. Come on, Will. Your last name is Baptiste, but you're really a Baptist, because you taking us there, brother. You taking us there. You going to be a vacuum, or you going to be a battery? And that's for across the board. That's for whether you're talking about a man or a woman. You're going to be a vacuum, or you're going to be a battery in somebody's life.
Yeah.
That's heavy. Doc, come on, talk to me, Doc, because I need a moment. I need a moment.
I'm looking for the battery. I don't know what else.
I need a battery.
I don't know what else is
but see, all right, going back to it, Dr. Bridget, that's going back to this thing, right? Like, if you're going to be in that place, and Will, you dropping that by saying that, it's like you got to know yourself well enough in every stage of growth and development who you really are.
Right.
Because I feel like this, and I could be wrong, I feel like we all have the potential to be toxic. I don't think anybody, if you go through life and through this life, I think that life can really hit you in a lot of different ways and can make you feel a lot of different things. So I think we can all have the potential, the inclination to be toxic, but it takes a much stronger, or I'd rather say more intentional person to say, you know what? I know I came from a dysfunctional background. I know I came from a toxic relationship. I know I have some shortcomings that can lead to some unfulfilled expectations. I know I got all of this stuff, but I'm going to do something better. I'm going to make a different choice this time and not be the worst of myself. And as my therapist once told me, and I always say this, she said, Farajii, one of the things that I want you to do is I'm going to teach you how to be your whole, complete self and not be your compartmentalized self.
100%.
Because that's where she said, that's where a lot of us reside. We reside in our compartmentalization, you know, when in this relationship and that relationship, in this connection and this. And it doesn't have to be romantic. It's just in terms of our family relationship, our friends relationship. Some of us can't keep good friendships because we're compartmentalized and all of those things. Doc, talk to me. Woo.
Absolutely. No, I mean, the fact of the matter is that we're really talking about how can we make men healthier in our lives, right? How can you take responsibility and accountability so that you can have a more fulfilled, more full, more expressive life. And culturally, men are taught to suppress, right? And we don't have great examples, you know. And I'm not talking about just personally, but when you look in the media, and well, if you want to comment, we've got Kanye, we got you know, when was it Tyree, when he was all over the media crying, I think about his marriage, or people made so much fun of the fact that he was out there crying. Why did we do that? Why didn't we give him for that? Right? That Will Smith, I don't know. I don't even know. Right? Kevin Samuels, you know, rest his soul. Puffy, who knows what's going on? Jonathan Majors. There's a lot of things that we see coming at us. And what do we do with that information? Right? And we have to realize, what do we emulate and what do we reject? And I don't think people always know what to do with that.
And how and where does a person start, brother Will? Where do we start with that process? Like, I hope today's conversation will inspire people to say, you know what? Let me step out of my comfort zone. Let me go into a new place. Let me connect with somebody like a Will Baptiste or a Dr. Bridget to help me to understand some of these things, right? But there's a lot of content online. We could be having, I mean, as much as I enjoyed this conversation, then you got a whole bunch of these dumbass clips that circulated around social media where you hear guys on podcasts, women on podcasts talking about some of the dumbest. Yes, brother, that's how I feel too. Some of the craziest relationship advice. Sometimes, and I'm like, but none of these people have ever been married. And I'm gonna say that just like that, y'all. None of these people have ever been married. Let me tell you something. If you ain't never been married and to understand what it takes to sustain another human being day in, day out, when you like each other, when you don't like each other, you see what I'm saying? To feed another, and I'm not talking about physically, I'm talking about emotionally, I'm talking about spiritually feeding a person, even when y'all not on the same page, on the same space. What are we talking about?
Well, again, it goes back. I am a fanatic or someone that cheer on when it comes to accountability and responsibility. At the end of the day, we are adults, and I know that we've been through trauma. Been there, you know, the young boy that was sexually abused, molested, incarcerated, divorced twice. I've been there and I know what it's like. So that's why I have what we call emotional trinity. I have compassion, empathy, and sympathy. But at the same time, I know how to hold a brother accountable. So listen, look in the mirror. Is what you see in the mirror, do you like it? Do you like what you see in the mirror? And if that answer is no, then I'm telling you, the help is out there, whether it's me or anybody else. You got to choose who works for you. But at the end of the day, please do the work. You'll do us a favor. More importantly, you will do yourself a favor.
You know, the one thing that I will do with some of the people that I work with is I will ask them, would you want your daughter to date someone like you? And I've had that's when the emotion comes out. Because at that moment, I've had men just cry. And I was like, okay, now let's get to work. Because all that guard, that wall that they produce and they're just giving me little tidbits, almost like they were forced to be there. And sometimes, in some cases, they are a little bit. But if you don't want your daughter to date someone like you, do the work.
Dang, that's all. We about to close up the shop, man, because y'all just at this point, Dr. Bridget and Brother Will, I don't need to say nothing else. I just need to give out your contact information. You just need to give out your contact. Look, I can't thank you enough. And first, Dr. Bridget, I can't thank you enough for bringing our brother Will on to have this conversation. I know that a lot of men who are watching today, they may not always show up in the chat with a comment, but there are a lot of men that watch today that are affected by this. And my hope and prayer is that we can kind of move further along, you know. And I think that for any man or for any woman who is going through some rough personal development time, that something that has always been taught to me is that you embrace your whole story. You embrace your whole story. Just like you did, Brother Will, you just laid it out, you know, where your story is. You embrace your whole story. And I think that is the thing. Like, that's, for me, I think that's the beginning of that self-love that we've been talking about, is that you embrace your story. Like, yes, your path is not the path of your neighbor, your best friend, your sister, or your brother. That's the path that God made for you. And at this point in your life, you can accept it, or you can keep on being in this space. I think Dr. Bridget and Brother Will, where people are like, well, I'm not supposed to be divorced at this age, or I'm not supposed to be experiencing financial hardship at this time, or I'm not supposed. No. Life is experienced differently by every single one of us. And that's okay. That's okay. You know what I'm saying? That is okay. All right, Brother Will, you took us to church today, and I appreciate you doing so. Talk to us. How can people get more information about the work that you're doing, and if they want to contact you? And then we go to our dear medical expert, Dr. Bridget.
Absolutely. Well, since we're at the church, I'm going to pass the collecting plate. But anyway, yes, absolutely. Listen, I'm everywhere. People cannot say they can't find me. I am on every social media platform, whether it's IG, LinkedIn, Facebook. Will to Rise. That's the name of my book, The Will to Rise: How to Persevere in the Face of Adversity. You can get it on Amazon right now. My website is meetwilltorise.com, because I believe that all of us have a will and the ability to rise. So therefore, brothers and sisters, let us all rise together. So wherever there's social media, you will find me, because when there's a will, there's a way.
Come on, man. Where there's a will, there's a way. Man, oh man, I hear that, brother. I hear that. Dr. Bridget, real quick. My sister Janae checked in and said, define safe space. How would you define safe space, Doc?
How to safe space?
How would you defining the term safe space? When we say safe space, can you give a definition for that?
It means leaving a mental space or room for someone to interact with, to support them. When I say saving space for someone, it means that I'm going to keep you at the top of my list. I am going to make room for your growth, or whatever it is that we're working on. To save space means that, you know, you're on that list, and you can't budge. That space is for you.
That space is for you. And that just simply means giving people the time, giving them your attention, and not bringing no judgment, no ego. All of that stuff is put to the side, and we want to hear the real you. Dr. Bridget, how can people get in touch with you? Personal consultations and other ways. How can people get in touch with you, sis?
Best thing to do is go to Dr. Bridget Will. No, what is it? DrBridgetMD.com. So, I forget. I don't know. DrBridgetMD.com is probably the easiest way to connect with me. And of course, I'm on social media as Dr. Bridget MD as well. We're seeing that today's Tuesday. We are not doing the healthy relationships only today. We're making our move over to YouTube. But next week, Farajii, I'm bringing on, I'm kind of continuing this idea. I'm bringing on Dr. Kristen Matthews of Preventive Measures, who is doing the work to make sure we're getting more Black male therapists out there.
There
So
it is.
that'll be interesting, and so that we can, we want healthy brothers, right? So
Yeah. There it is, right there, Dr. Bridget. Make sure y'all follow her on social media. My brother Will Baptiste, thank you so much. You got a new follower from me, so take a look, just look out for that. And I thank y'all so much for being so good for the culture today. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Farajii.
Absolutely. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. I thank you for the illustrious culture crew that's checked in on our X platform, the Facebook platform, and of course on Roland Martin's YouTube page. Make sure you do your due diligence. Go to our website today, download the app at blackstarnetwork.com. Download the app, follow us on social media, and drop something in the bucket as we kick off the new year, looking for your support as an investor and stakeholder. All right. So thank you. Big shout out to all of our new watchers on the YouTube chat. So I hope that you enjoyed the conversation and you're looking to be back here with us as we have more discussions like this. All right, that's going to do it for me. 6 p.m. Eastern Time, Roland Martin and Filth. It's, as always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong, stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we'll talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here, exclusively here on the Black Star Network. Peace.